important for us to clean off equipment and get it ready for overwintering?
Well, it's a very important process, actually, not at the time that we are right now. You can feel that it's starting to get a little cooler, but it's actually ideal probably to do it right after your seeding, where you can actually clean out your tanks and actually get the product out of there and get especially the corrosive product like fertilizer out, and it's very important to do so. You don't have parts that are wearing out as much or rusting up, or just basically the overall protection of the equipment. And the longer you leave it, the more issues you're going to have.
What sort of problems have you seen as a result of people not preparing their equipment properly?
Probably a little bit higher maintenance costs. They're going to be changing more chains more often. They'll have bearings piling up. You'll have meter rollers plugging up a little bit too and building up with corrosion material. And you know what? That affects your performance. And you don't want any performance to be affected the following year. You don't want nothing to slow you up, because you only have so much time to do your seeding, and you want to be going and you want to have no issues at seeding time. So
we're going to go over what you should do to get your seeder ready for overwintering. So maybe how should we start?
Well, the big things that we recommend doing is after you've finished your seeding is to wash your equipment down. So get it close enough to a pressure washer to wash it all down. Make sure the tanks are blowing out. If you're seeing any fertilizer build up in any of the tanks, wash them out as well. You'd need to clean out some of your open up some of your meter roll areas. You take this drop plate out as well, just so that if you're washing with water, that it actually drains away. And after you've washed everything and you got all the debris off, you actually need to go in there with air and blow it off. So you want to try to get the water out as quick as possible as well, and especially in the areas of your tanks where there's fertilizer or fertilizer dust. So it's pretty key there. And after you've got it dry, the big things that you need to do is to use a non-petroleum based product to help protect it. So a rust product, fluid film is something that we use a lot, and that is the product that we would use mostly on here, where you would, after you've blown it off again, that you'd maybe, if you find any debris of fertilizer buildup, you can use a wire brush or air to try to blow it off. But the big thing is trying to coat the chains. So you see we got some chains here and underneath here and inside our transmissions. Those are areas that you want to try to make sure you get some lubrication on to protect it for the winter and the moisture. And some people will store their tanks inside, some will store them outside, but the majority of them are outside. Here's an example of some moisture has already got onto the chain here, that this chain is already actually starting to seize itself here. You can see that has already bridged itself and is not really being as flexible. So, this chain would probably have to be replaced next year as well. But again, if you hit it early enough, you can soak it down. And I also hit the bearings and stuff as well. And this fluid film works very well. And again, once you have lubricated them, I would give it a crank and just make sure that the chain turns evenly, and give it a little bit more of this fluid film. Works really well. Here we have the meter rollers. So I've taken the face cover off and the seed plate out, and you can see the meter rollers here. So this is a 8 series Morris cart, and on the older ones that we have is a 7 and a 6 series. They're a little different setup. The newer ones are probably built a little bit better and less issues with corrosion as much, but still a good thing is to blow these meter rollers off. Again, it doesn't hurt to give them a little bit of blast of the fluid film as well to protect it. This is a double chute cart, so you have a deflector here that actually deflects the product and moves it from whichever top roll of pipes or the bottom pipes, whichever one you want to apply it in. So good thing is to coat these areas with the fluid film, work it back and forth, and that'll help protect that. Doesn't hurt to give the bearings and stuff a little shot as well. And again, here's the chains and the transmissions. Moving back to the back here, we have the handle for these standard transmissions, and again, you can crank these, and basically you can give them a crank and apply the fluid film to them. There's also on here, it's maybe a little tough to see, but there's a chain in the inside, way inside the tire here, that is good to get some lubrication on as well. The other thing that you'll see that there's grease nipples and stuff on. One thing is good to help get the moisture out after you've washed it down and ensure that everything's going to be ready for the next year is to put some grease in there. That'll help squeeze out any moisture that's in there. One of the other things that we recommend on our tanks is to take the pressure off the lids. Some people are wondering why that's important. You can see that there's a fair amount of pressure that is put on the lid if these are left latched. And what it does is it keeps constant pressure on the seal here. So we recommend to take that pressure off so you don't have that force squishing this down all the time, and then the following year this will be more helpful to seal the tank, is that it keeps its shape a little bit better than being squished down. The one other thing that I like to do on our own tanks at home is to put some product inside the tank, and if it's half a bag of cat litter or something like that, that it basically can absorb moisture, is a pretty helpful thing, especially in the fertilizer tanks. Some people have used cat litter. I actually just use oats myself at home. It seems to absorb moisture pretty well. So there's two ways with this lid to leave them. You can just leave them up like that with no pressure on. If you're concerned that the lid might still blow open, what you can do is you can back off this bolt here, so the pressure, you would screw it up a little higher so the pressure wouldn't be on there and you could actually snap it down. Those are the two ways of dealing with the lids. What you do is, depends on the hoppers of the augers, it's good to turn them over and so they don't collect any snow in the wintertime. But some of them, like the one that's on here, is actually one that doesn't turn, so you just have to make sure the bottom drain is out. Other people have blocked up their tires just to ensure that there's no added stress on their tires and weight in the wintertime, because the cold temperature actually does reduce the air pressure in the tires and you get a little more sag in there. So some people will actually go to the extent of jacking up their units and blocking up the tanks, but really that's probably not a necessary thing. So.